Цей епізод я присвячую пам'яті мого батька, Кошовського Петра Федоровича, який відійшов у вічність у жовтні 2021 року. Запис матеріалів і їх публікація часто розділені в часі, і цей випуск теж був записаний раніше, проте він також про спогади і те хороше і цінне, що ми можемо і повинні з них виносити. Не раз із татом і родиною проводили аналогії між програмами обміну типу Work and Travel і будзагонами в Сургуті та інших місцях, в які закидувала доля молодих студентів у Радянському Союзі. Кожне покоління має свої виклики і реалії, і поміж все ми шукаємо власний шлях. Тато завжди підтримував «Запали, цілі» і ділився своїми роздумами про кожну із тем та інтерв'ю на каналі. Певен, що і надалі йому буде цікаво спостерігати за новинками. Статтю українською та фотографії з часів мого обміну за програмою Flex у США знайдете за посиланням у описі та під цим епізодом. Тату, дякуємо за все і любимо тебе. І ви, шановні слухачі, сьогодні обійміть своїх рідних та найдорожчих і подякуйте їм за хороші миті та все те чудове, що ще чекає вас попереду. А тепер до нового випуску.
I went out from the class and I came back like, hey guys, you know what? I'm going to the United States.
It was a disaster for me.
I even thought that, hey, I need to value more my family back home, health, wealth, happiness, and love.
Episode in English? Oh yeah, let's do it! Англійською послуговуюся у щоденному вжитку доволі часто через сфери інтересів, особливості професії та моє хобі – читати, слухати, дізнаватися та вивчати щось цікаве довкола. Чи у фінансах, чи в стоїцизмі, або ж у підходах до ефективних занять спортом. Цей випуск записано для подкасту Xme Podcast із моїм товаришем Денисом. І його мета – популяризувати програми обміну у світі, і, зокрема, серед українців, та ділитися цікавим досвідом тих, хто проживав і навчався за кордоном, і якимось чином розширював завдяки цьому світогляд. Якщо у вас є брати чи сестри, племінниці, діти або внуки підліткового віку, то закликаю вас звернути увагу на різні можливі програми обміну, зокрема і Flex. Це Future Leaders Exchange Program, програма обміну майбутніми лідерами. У свій час вона посприяла багатьом якісним змінам в моєму житті і оточенні. А трошки згодом, у 18, ми вже компанією друзів гайнули у США вдруге на Work and Travel за зовсім іншим досвідом. Багато деталей залишиться за кадром, але стимулювати себе до досліджень і незвичного з юного віку – це запорука більш свідомого вибору і візії у дорослому віці. Не лякайтесь англійської і послухайте цей епізод, навіть якщо зараз ще у процесі підтягування мови. У мене вдосталь помилок та слів-паразитів, тому грамарнаці і надмірно самовпевнені випускники і випускниці філфаків можете не надто напружуватися, якщо ріже вухо. Але загалом фідбек вітається, бо завжди є куди рости. Корисні посилання та релевантну інформацію я залишу в описі цього епізоду. Поділіться, будь ласка, з тими, кому актуально. Підписуйтесь, ставте лайки і буду вдячний за ваші коментарі. Якщо не знаєте, що написати, але хочете підтримати, залиште комент «Слухаю із задоволенням. Давайте ще!» знак оклику в кінці. Thanks for your attention. Please like and subscribe to Goals on F.I.R.E. And let's get moving!
Hi listeners, my name is Denis Andrushenko. I am alumnus of the Future Leaders Exchange Program of 2012, member of a Rotary Club Cherkasy Center, and the founder of the Leaders Fund. Xme Podcast is about alumni of exchange programs, their experience, and lessons learned. We hope that these conversations will inspire the next generation of leaders and promote peace and understanding around the globe.
Today,
I'm glad to welcome Roman Koshovsky, Flex alumnus of 2008. He's a business analyst at SoftServe, author of YouTube series on a podcast named Goals on F.I.R.E. It's about financial literacy, investments, and meaningful life. Also, Roman is a personal finance planner at iPlan.ua, a consulting service that helps Ukrainians around the world to plan their life goals with smart financial and investment decisions and milestones. Roman also has a blog in Ukrainian called Creativity, Development, and Search, where he shares the ideas on habits, psychology, good books, finances, and a healthy and balanced lifestyle. Thank you for joining today, Roman.
Thanks, Dennis. Glad to be here. Glad to talk to you today and exchange some ideas here.
The focus of our conversation will be Flex program, since both of us went to the United States on this program. I usually start with asking my guests, when did you hear about this program and why did you decide to give it a try?
Yeah, it was interesting for me. The overall curiosity about English language for me came from first-person shooters like Counter-Strike. I was playing it around in mid-2000s. And if you wanted to stay on top, to know about the latest developments in the game and how to plan, how to strategize, I had my own team. You had to learn that from English resources because they got translated to Russian, later Ukrainian, in a couple months, so you would be behind. So my initial interest in English overall came from gaming in my teenager years. But then later on, as I studied English, I heard somewhere around, I don't know, 7th or 8th grade that such program exists from one of my friends. She was older and she went on a Flex program in one of the years before me. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. I would like to give it a try. And then when I tried to find out if I'm eligible to try, they said, no, you're too young for now. Please wait for another year. And I didn't have like any special preparation, but I enjoyed English in my daily life. It was one of my favorite subjects at school. So I just decided to give it a try.
Give it a try. This is how adventures start.
I didn't think I would pass all the levels. For me, it was mostly like a game to try. And then we went with a couple of my friends to like the first round, and fewer of us left for the second round. And I mean, as we progressed, I thought, maybe it's possible. Why don't you try a bit more? So I heard about that from older friends at school. And then my English teacher, she told me, you should apply, at least try. And with a couple of my friends, we did try, and that's how I ended up going to US.
I have a similar story with a friend, but then I was the one advising my friends to try it, and then she went from the first attempt to the US. She went to Colorado, and I had to wait another year because I didn't pass in this third round. Interestingly, my English teacher, she told me about Flex program, and she said, well, you can go and try your English level, just to see how you do. And then just like the night before, I realized that, wow, it's actually a chance to go to the United States. Did you have any expectations while you were going through this through the selection process?
It was interesting because at first I had some similar background as you said, that it's going to be a lot of stuff about knowing English, and like coming from mid-sized regular town, I didn't have like special English tutoring. I didn't specially prepare for that. And when I came to that first couple of rounds, and I've seen like students from specialized English schools that had a lot of advanced English classes, I was like, well, this is not my level of preparation, but at least let's try. So my initial expectation was that it's going to be a lot about knowing a perfect English. But then I realized when you pass those first 1-2 rounds, English is important, but it becomes secondary to the success, because actually what the American councils, what the organization is looking for is more broader skill set than just your English. And then the focus shifted, and I thought, well, if it's not only about English, maybe the expectation is at least try and do your best and see how far you can go. So I got more excited to challenge myself.
So did you actually succeed during the first year, like when you attempted?
Yeah, for me, I know that some students are lucky to be born in such periods of time that you can try twice. For me, it was like I only had one attempt at my 10th grade, because at 11th grade I would be too old, so my date of birth like didn't fit to try it twice. So for me, it was the only attempt, and I succeeded from the first time. It was quite a thrill for me.
Well, lucky you. Do you remember the call from the American councils regarding your finalist status?
Yeah, it was very interesting, because back in the days, you didn't have a chance to, I don't know, check out some applications online or whatever. You were just expecting the call. And we had some first organized forums of the prospective finalists on the web, and we're just saying, hey, did they call you or not? It was like old school forum posts, not like in socializing in social media, but actually posting on various forums. And I was expecting it, but the call didn't come through. I've heard from some of my friends that, hey, I got a call and I passed. Friends from all over Ukraine. And then I got the call on one of my classes during school, and it was like before the big break in school. So I was like, whoa. I went out to talk, because I've seen like some number calling from Kyiv, and I thought, wow, it could be important. I went out from the class and I came back like, hey guys, you know what? I'm going to the United States. And everybody was cheering. Like, yeah, that's cool. That's great. And like we ended up that lesson, stayed there, and then went for a big break, just screaming everywhere. We went to the dining hall. I called my parents to have a small celebration. Like my sister also, she was happy for me, my mom. So I called them all, and it was interesting. So it was during my school time. I got excited, and then I thought to myself, okay, that sounds cool, but I was a bit scared as well. What is it going to look like? Because the initial thrill is great. Yeah, now I'm going to the US. But the second thought was, okay, what am I going to do? The 15-year-old kid, what's going to happen? So it was interesting. Yeah.
So once you achieved, once you overcome the first challenge, which is to be selected, you got another challenge, like how am I going to get to the United States? Will I accommodate to the culture, to the place where I'm staying, right?
Yeah, that's true, because, I even thought that my English was too much tied to the old school books. And I thought, hey, if I'm going to come to some place where there are a bunch of teenagers, of course, their accent, their word usage would be a bit different. So I bought myself the actual book with slang and curse words to at least try to understand what they could look like, because they never got taught in school. It didn't help me a lot, but at least I learned some valuable words from there to guide me better through the actual school life later.
I don't know if it's a coincidence, but I got a similar book with all the slang words. And I don't remember whether my English teacher gave it to me or I got it somewhere else, but I definitely remember that I had it. I don't think it helped me much. I think all the slang words and jokes I learned during the conversations with my friends, especially at cross-country training. And of course at high school, but yeah, I had something similar. And before you went to Missouri, by the way, did you know how early did you know that you are going to this state?
Oh, that was a bit crazy, because even at my pre-departure orientation, when the majority of kids already know at least what state they're being placed in, maybe not the family, but some sort of location, I didn't know anything, because there was some initial placement, but then they changed their mind and they were searching for some other family. So it was a turbulent period. I think maybe, I don't know, like a couple weeks before my departure, I finalized that it's going to be Missouri, and only, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks before I left, I found out more about my actual host family. So it was a stress process for me. I didn't know that much in advance, but once I learned it's going to be Missouri, at least I went and Googled what can I expect in that state.
Before knowing that this is going to be your home state, did you draw some fantasies about United States? Let's say many students want to go to California and they imagine these sunset boulevards. Did you have any ideas like that?
Yeah, like building expectation is something that more mature life teaches you that you shouldn't do that often. But being young and naive in some way, I also built some expectation. Hey, maybe it's going to be somewhere closer to New York or Washington, D.C. I didn't think that much about California back then, but I thought staying closer to one of the big cities would be great. Of course, we all built some expectations around from movies and shows and some series that we've seen about US. And then when you actually go there, you build some other view of what the real US looks like. So I had some small expectations, like what the school could look like, what would I like to try out at the high school, but I wasn't like prepared for some specific state or specific location. I was quite open-minded because I knew from experience that usually students will not get placed into those hyped up spaces, but would stay in more regular location to learn the actual American life from within.
And by the way, when you answered my brief, like I asked questions to our guests before we have these interviews, and one question is about what state of a person are you? And I give two states as a choice, and also the third option, which is other. So people usually pick either Alaska or Hawaii, and then you say I'm a Missouri type of a person. And does it mean that Missouri was an actual fit for your personality, or did it change you in a way that now you can say, yeah, I like Missouri and it's like that?
I would say Missouri is not a very special state, but the overall experience was interesting. I would say that I answered Missouri in that question because it was my first abroad experience that lasted that long. And actually the conditions of the state were different. I also thought that, hey, maybe if I'm in the middle of states, nothing crazy could happen here because there are no hurricanes, tsunamis, or something other going on. But they had tornadoes. So wherever you go in states, you can have some threats. In terms of like what state am I wouldn't identify myself like exclusively with Missouri, but Missouri was like my first window to going to some other states around. And also I would say it was like a Midwest working location where I learned that hardworking people can learn good solid wages and explore the world around. So I would say it was just like a normal state with somewhat interesting history, and also gave me the opportunity to see how people operate in less fancy locations. Still, they have a good solid life.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell our listeners what city did you go to?
I stayed in St. Joseph, Missouri. It's north from Kansas City, not far from Kansas City. And it was Central High School of St. Joseph. I studied there in my senior school year. So it was interesting. It was challenging, but was worth it for sure.
What about your family? Did you have any siblings? What did your family do for a living? How did you like? What was the first impression? All this kind of stuff is very interesting to our prospective finalists, because they need to know what to expect or not to expect.
Yeah, that's true. In terms of host family, it was a interesting and challenging experience as well. The thing is, there was a warm and hardworking single mom, 4 sons, and 2 of which stayed with us, lived with us, and 2 other were older, so they just came by a couple times a week. So I was a like teenager with 1 host brother a year older than me and 1 year younger than me. So I was in the middle. It was a sometimes a tough battle for video games, for some attention from a mom, a host mom, because she was busy, she was working, and she had to have several jobs to support her kids because she was like the single working parent. I would say from the family perspective, it was challenging time because I had to like fight for attention, fight for some family resources when you live with other teenage guys and you want to eat something better, you better cook it yourself and eat it. So it was challenging that way. And also, like single mom, she couldn't give us enough of attention due to her staying late at work. And at some level, I even thought that, hey, I need to value more my family back home in terms of, having different perspective when I had more times with my real parents. With siblings here in US, it was a bit different. And also, I would say that the family was more typical American family. I wouldn't say they traveled a lot, because when we talked before about some expectations, I thought, oh yeah, my host family would drive me places and give me some more guidance around the US. In this case, I understood that, yeah, they were supportive, they were helpful, but it wouldn't be like they were trying to make the best year for me. I had to work around to keep the family life on an okay level, but also find some extracurricular stuff. And that's where school helped me. So going back to the question about my high school, first thing was like, I actually saw the star factor for like cheerleaders and football team. I thought it's only in movies, but when I went to my school, I've seen that, hey, those guys and girls are actually like top of the food chain. Everybody's talking about them and they're really that popular. What I enjoyed about school was ability to select my courses. So it was a totally new world for me, because in Ukraine, you learn what you learn and that's it. And here I had the option to choose, which was new for a 15-year-old kid. And also, since I knew my family wouldn't be engaged that much in my traveling, I joined some clubs like creative writing, Hacky-Sack Club, DECA, which was marketing youth organization. I helped some kids after school, also did some volunteering experience. And all of that extracurricular activity helped me to see more places than I would if I just stayed with my family and did my regular schoolwork. So I would say family was good, was supportive, but they had like limited time and resources to, fulfill all of the dreams of exchange student. But I was thankful because they provided solid foundation, and then I needed to jump from that and gain more experience by myself.
We often hear that host families are not always able to provide exchange students with the needed, with the necessary attention. And I'm not talking about field trips all the time somewhere, or fancy vacations. Not every family can afford that. But I'm talking about the general family time together, spending weekends together, at least, and not even talking about evenings, which is maybe by default in Ukraine, but we also have hardworking parents who often have several jobs. So my question boils down to this one. Why do you think Americans decide to take exchange students? Why do they volunteer for this?
It's a good question. I thought about it for some time when I was a bit younger. I thought maybe it's more about some potential tax advantages or other things, but I don't think it boils down only to money. It usually means that in some communities, people are more welcoming than in others. And for families, there could be a couple of reasons. Some of the families could be like quite older people whose kids left their homes and they seek for some youth around, and they want to give some warmth to other young people around, so they volunteer for that. For other people, it could be just a new experience or some new thing to try, because like my host family, they used to have a student from Asia before me, but he was older, and also they thought it was fun experience, so it was like their second time. So sometimes it's either a word of mouth from other community members or the ability to change something for the person. I think the actual motivations differ from family to family. But first of all, in the US, usually families have that room to feed another child, to provide for another child. And some of the families that feel that they can, bring somebody here in the US and taught them another way of living, another way of viewing the world, that it's worth those spent like time, moments, and material stuff. So I think it differs, and it shouldn't be only like money related. Usually motivation is deeper, but it's different in every case.
I also agree on the statement of a mission. So like you mentioned that Flax year was life-changing event for you, and the same is for me. So if we are talking about this mission-oriented cases, when these host families are able to change someone's life, it is a case in most cases. But if we want to talk about practical things, so for example, I'm as an exchange student coming to another country and spending time in a host family, I cannot be sure that everything will be smooth. So we are trying to find support also at school, and it's usually a good recommendation to take a few activities like sports, or as you mentioned, your marketing club, where you can both learn new things along with English, obviously, and also find new friends. And you also mentioned that you like basketball. Did you also play basketball back there?
I like it, but I'm not a good player. I would say it's amateur level. Actually, during the high school years and during my flex year, I just had a team sports as one of my activities. So it was a regular class, but I didn't play for any actual school team. I wasn't in that good shape back then. I was quite skinny, tall, but like physical education was not my strong part. But I went to like weightlifting class, and from being super skinny, I came back to Ukraine heavier by 7 kilos or something. And then like in my university years, I built more stamina and strength. So I would say US changed me even in my physical appearance, but I wasn't that cool back then with sports. I just started learning. So now, yeah, I like to play basketball from time to time. Even today in the morning, I played it and it was fun. But during school time, I think I wasn't that strong enough to play on some actual team, but I did some extra activities to stay fit.
Another fun fact, I actually have this book called Global Exchanges. It's about scholarships and transnational circulations in the modern world. If you can see, this book. And I just read the chapter on YMCA and how they trained local staff, so people from other countries, where YMCA was just entering, especially Asian countries. And physical education was at the core of this organization. And actually a lot of people who came to the US like on an exchange program to learn all these core activities, they came back and then trained a lot of other people on physical education, which was at the time, the end of the 19th century, in the beginning of the 20th century, was essential to a lot of people. And I also try to reflect on my experience. I love sports. I love running. So that's why I joined cross country in fall. During winter, we couldn't run because West Virginia also got snow. It's hard to run. So I went to swimming. It was a disaster for me. I was like the slowest swimmer on the team. But this just, I don't know, crazy workouts for me, it also turned in plus 7 kilos or something like that.
Yeah.
Because, you eat all this, a lot of meat, especially after you burn so many calories. And I got buff after that season. So I feel your story and I understand how flex also changed me physically at that point.
Yeah, that's true. And I also agree and would add to that about like some recommendations for students and for some newcomers to this Future Leaders Exchange program, that you shouldn't stay in your box and say, hey, host family doesn't help me, I do not know what to do. You should be willing to explore, to change things, to try something new. For me, this experience was like rebuilding myself from scratch. Like in Ukraine, like at home, you have your own identity, you have your own vision, you have some reputation before you go. Here in the US, when you land on the land of freedom and opportunities, you're one of thousands of other exchange students, and you're not super different. You have to differentiate, you have to understand, what do I want to try? What new would I like to learn? That was the same, like, as you said, with some competitions and learnings, like with that marketing organizations, I actually participated in some competitions. And like in Ukraine, for you to be eligible to go to some district competition, you first have to win some competitions at school level, and then you go higher and higher. But back then they said, hey, we have, I don't remember, like 15 slots for that competition. Please apply by that date. And they gave equal opportunities to that guy who has like B- and that girl who has A+ from marketing subject. So it opened to me a new world, that you don't get evaluated only by your grade, but actually at your performance. And I was able to go as well and like participate in that competition against like Native Americans. And I got third on the district level, and it helped me to go to the all-state competition on marketing, which was interesting. It was a totally new experience, and that also led me to choosing something closer to like economics and international relations as my major at university. So small steps, they build up, and whatever you try at school, whatever you try outside of school, just be open for this opportunity. Do not stay around only on your social media and post about your daily life. Try something new. It's you never know where it's gonna lead you to.
You touched upon this topic of social media. How was it back then in 2007, 2008?
Yeah, I would say every generation is different. Whenever I spoke about my experience, and we had some older alumni coming from, I don't know, 2001, they said, hey, you guys had it easy. We had to write the actual letters and send it by post mail and wait for a couple of weeks for it to arrive, and then maybe have 1 or 2 calls with parents per year. And that was a great outcome. For me, it was like a beginning era of social media. I started my Facebook account back when I was on my flex journey, but with my parents, I had Skype calls, I would say around once per month. And that was a cool option because I was able to see them, to talk to them in real time, and it wasn't super expensive, just the internet fee charge. And back then in US, they had the cool bandwidth and all of the internet things. And back in Ukraine, my parents had to pay for megabytes of data to be able to talk to me. We didn't even have in my local town the unlimited internet back then. So I would say for my generation, I was forced to be more immersed in the culture, to have less contacts with Ukrainians. I wrote a lot of emails back to my friends over some chats like ICQ and other stuff, but it wasn't that easy to do as it is right now. So back then it was a bit harder, and it forced students to, okay, I do not have somebody to talk to in Ukrainian. I need to find some friends, or at least interesting people around me, and speak in English. So in that way, I would say having less opportunity to talk to your people at home regularly, like strengthened my actual experience and improved it in a way that I was more immersed in American culture.
And definitely it's allowed you to try more things back there in the US. And I wanted to ask you about a lift-a-thon competition. I guess it's a charity event, right?
It was interesting because it was like combination of charity event and the weightlifting competition. That's why it's called lift-a-thon. We participated in it, and as I told you, I was super skinny, but I entered the competition, and only 3 guys in my weight category tried out for it, and I placed 3rd, so I was the last, but still on the podium because I did some bench press, some squats, and I believe it was a deadlift, the 3rd exercise, and it was a like small win for me. Okay, I was 3rd from 3 people in my weight category because it was a very lightweight category, but I brought home this award, and it was like, for me, it was interesting because I said to myself, okay, even being super skinny, you can work on yourself, you can become better and stronger. So it ended up that we raised some good money for school charity, and also participated in some big guys, pushed some good weights. And for me, the overall experience of belonging even to that sports area was definitely something new, because in Ukraine, if I would come to any gym, some guys would look at me and say, hey, you got to eat for another year or two, some good amount of proteins and carbohydrates before you come here. But here I was able even to being a sort of misfit to at least try out. So it was good. It was different.
Do you remember how much did you earn, and what was the rule? Like, was it for each lift that you got a certain amount raised? How did it work?
It was actually don't quite remember. It was tied to like the total numbers in each category. So every participant applied, and then they got it combined. I don't remember the actual rule, but the thing was, the more you bench press, the more you did, the more was funded to that fund. So everybody was
working as a team.
Yeah, trying to push to the limit, and even not compete against each other, but earn the higher number in your category.
Nice.
Together as participants.
I'm asking because I think we had a similar charity event, which was probably called run-a-thon, because we ran in circles, and for each circle, like parents probably gave their kids, let's say $5, so $2,
right?
And then the total amount raised, it went to the charity. And I think the overall experience of volunteering, it was something new and exciting that I experienced first in the US. Was it the case for you as well?
Yeah, it was similar, because even before, when I did something as a teenager and like helped somebody for free, I didn't know much about the actual volunteering experience, or that somebody is like doing that with no expectations of some certain rewards or monetary donations. And one of the first, which is like not money related, but even better in some case for me, was making blood donations. We had the fundraiser, and we donated blood around the school. It was a big company, and everybody was running. It was promoted to donate the blood. And I came the first time and they said, hey, sorry, you're too young. Come back when you were 16. So in autumn, I was too young. I applied, but they declined my application. And then like in February, there was a second round of this donations going on. And I donated my blood, consulted with my mom because she's a doctor. And she said, yeah, you're healthy. Why don't you try? So it was my first time donating blood in US. And also, as you mentioned, other volunteer experiences, especially Flex, being open to that and actually sort of motivating students to try out this experience. With this, like even my placement coordinator, she encouraged me to try new things, to go and help like people in need. We help with some charity, we help with some concert organization for one of the holidays. Definitely volunteering is a good part of that experience.
You mentioned also that you went to Orlando, Florida. Was it because of one of these competitions that are run by host organizations?
No, it was a different experience. Like I mentioned before, with my host family, I was mostly focused on whatever was going around the town, but to go somewhere else, I engaged in other activities. And one of them was that I had a very good connection with my placement coordinator, Terry. And sometimes she took me out for some interesting museums with other students or to see some interesting places in the area. And actually with Orlando, Florida, it was a sort of birthday present for me, seeing and recognizing my interest in various topics. So my placement coordinator, she sponsored for me a flight and a hotel stay, but I needed to pay for the actual admittance ticket to World of Disney World. So it was interesting. I went to Florida to see all those crazy roller coasters and all of that Disney aura around me. So it was more like a thank you from a person who enjoyed my company. And also it was for me one of the first lessons of saving and investing into something I liked, because Flex provides students with some monthly allowance. And in order to go to Orlando in, I guess it was January, I had to save up portions of my money. It was also a cool experience.
Well, did it help you with choosing your future profession? I mean, both experiences of Flex and work and travel.
I would say yes. Mostly Flex guided the way, because I also had the chance to participate in the civic education workshop for Flex program that was held back then in Washington. And it was a cool experience because for a couple of days, you get immersed in the politics, in international relations. You visit all this top cultural buildings of Washington. You travel, you move around. We got introduced to some high-level officials. And that point, even participation in that competition, I got selected, went there with a bunch of exchange students from different countries. That point brought me to the idea that I'm interested in something international. Maybe it's going to be international economics or international relations. Together with marketing experience from that DECA organization, led me to choosing my major, which became international economics back in Ukraine. And then when I went on work and travel, while being a second-year student at university, I just understood that even in the US, you can earn fair wages, support yourself, but still, if you want to progress, you have to get a higher education. It's not mandatory, but it's better because you have more opportunities, you can learn better, you open wider networks of people. So work and travel showed me some sort of lower middle class people that didn't pay that much attention to their education and future growth. And they stayed in their 40s, 50s on the jobs that I wouldn't like to stay at that level. I saw some, not idealistic US, but more regular. And I thought to myself, that's a good point to start in Taco Bell or Arby's or working somewhere else, but that's not where I want to end. I need to learn, I need to progress. And work and travel just showed me that other view, that you can earn good money, but it's still not going to be fulfilling job. To get a fulfilling job, search for meaning, look for other ways, and grow.
We recommend supporting us on Patreon so that you can learn about work and travel as an exchange program, yes, and other insights from Roman. Now, back to our conversation. If I would sum up, you decided to invest in yourself and find a meaningful work. What was your path to a business analyst, and especially at a well-known and large organization as SoftServe in Ukraine?
It was a gradual process, still step by step, but I would say, the thing is, you have to experiment and try. For me, I started working at my last year of getting a master's degree here in Ukraine. So I combined the work and my study to get my diploma and all of that. And it was the company related to imports and exports. I was working with different suppliers from various English-speaking countries, usually Europe. And it gave me a good solid start. I worked up my ladder to the head of international relations and marketing department in that organization. And then combining my skills and looking for opportunities around, I thought that project management or business analysis would be an interesting fit. And during my professional life, I always try to stick to the vision that we have to stack different talents and evaluate ourselves, what our strong parts are, our strong habits, strong traits, because in our lifetime, usually you, Dennis, me, and our listeners would probably change at least 5 to 6 different roles or positions during lifetime, because it's not as for our grandparents or parents, they stayed in the same hospital or school or plant for entire life. For us, we have to be, like designers of our careers. I like the quote from Seneca, which is, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity."
Listen to this again. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And here, Roman talking about IT industry and how he stays realistic about its future perspectives.
It's sucking in the most talented people in some way. And that's why I'm in business analysis right now. But I understand that this trend may change. And in 10, 15 years, something new is going to be happening. But I would, at that point, reevaluate what's going on. So for the opportunity to be valid, you have to be prepared. You have to understand what is your skill stack, what do you own, and it's like about even sitting down and drawing your own like strength and weaknesses board, or taking some specific tests. Like there's a very good book by Tom Roth called Strengths Finder 2.0, which is about finding out, passing the test, and understanding your core strength in the work environment. And this helped me a lot. I understood what are my top key areas of growth, and I applied them to my profession transitioning from marketing and international relations into business analysis and helping businesses to build the good solutions.
And I wanted to highlight that to be prepared for all these changes you mentioned, you have to be financially independent. And it's a very honorable thing that you are doing, which is providing these free literacy lessons via your podcast and your work at iPlan. So could you please tell our listeners more about your podcast's Goals on F.I.R.E?
Yeah, Goals on F.I.R.E, the main idea on that is around building financial stability and then building a path towards financial independence. So F.I.R.E movement, which stands for Financial Independence, Early Retirement, is the concept that guides people to save and invest substantial portions of their income to create such a portfolio of assets that would generate a big enough passive income to sustain a certain person's lifestyle. So you progress in your career, you try to earn more, but you remain calm, frugal, and focus on the long-term goals. So it's a concept that guides towards like essentialism, minimalism, and not following the consumerism trap that the Western world is bringing to us, even here in Ukraine. And my idea was that it's a widespread concept worldwide, but it wasn't spoken much about in Ukrainian space. Also happened, in a way that the lockdown started, we switched to remote only work, and I understood that I do not have a commute. I have really a bit more free time in my 24 hours. Why don't I try to share this to show people like the concept that, hey, you can live a little bit differently. With the middle class that's emerging in Ukraine right now, they do not usually know, they do not have the role model of saving, investing. They only know about some hypes and failures and defaults. The history of Ukraine is not rosy, but it's a new generation that can build wealth. And the Goals on F.I.R.E. show brings some ideas on how we can do that. I tried to keep it not only about investments, but also adding some why questions to the table. So speaking about more balanced approach to having one's family, friends, goals, career, and finances aligned towards reaching some crucial lifestyle milestones and goals. And I've seen many channels focusing only on numbers, which is like, hey, what is your F.I.R.E. goal? Or how much money you should invest here, here, and here. But they are usually quite cold and like economic oriented. I was trying to bring more life and simplify the concepts to general public so more people can try it out and see what's going on. So some of the topics include like lessons on net worth tracking, finances and well-being, finances for kids, stages we go through while working on financial independence, minimalism, investment strategies, balancing meaningful savings with thanking yourself today and also thinking about your future self. So I lived through that myself as I was growing, earning, and saving for some of my goals. And the goal for the podcast is to share that with more listeners, to get them acquainted with that concepts and, taking that first step from not knowing what to do to what is my first step towards that expected goal.
Do you think that you got some wisdom on the Flex program as well? Do you remember?
Part of it probably, I would say it got me more interested in money in general, because on Flex program, I was actually getting my first crunchy dollar bills that were only my own. Before that, I had some allowance from my parents, but that was it. And so it was more like my first time, hey, now I can decide what to do with it. Save, spend on some crazy things that teenagers spend it for, or maybe buy something that's going to be interesting for me. And also I've seen that, I would say income inequality. My host mom was working on a couple jobs, but still she wasn't like super happy with her level of income. And that's also showed me that it's not only how hard you work, but how smart you work. Can you align your values, your growth, your learning with potential income, not only hard physical work, but switch to more mental work and other models that work better.
I see that you also had a few interesting recommendations to our listeners, so perhaps we could list them here so that people can read more on F.I.R.E. movement and also understand the balanced life better.
Sure. Just couple basic things would be, a couple of my favorite quotes, which are like wealth equals income minus ego. So even if you earn more, you learn more, but your ego is so high that you spend it all, it's not going to last forever. You have to be willing to sacrifice something right now for a better and more prosperous future. Also would be nice to understand that just learning stuff is not enough. You have to act upon it. So there is a good quote from Jim Rohn saying that if you let your learning lead to knowledge, you become a fool. If you let your learning lead to action, you become wealthy. So like rich is usually current income, and wealth is income not spent, hidden. Staying reasonable is good, is nice. And also speaking about the recommendations, I would say that first of all, if you are somewhere in Ukraine, visit Goals on Fire, type it in Google and learn some more about FIRE movement. For other listeners, you can check out concepts of lifestyle inflation. Also, there is a good quote from the Mask of Masculinity book by Lewis Howes that says, prosperity is a combination of health, wealth, happiness, and love. And I gravitate towards people like that because I want that in my own life. And I want to share that with other people as well. And basically, the idea of Goals on Fire, the idea of that movement is not just around the numbers. It's not about 4% rule and earning 25 number of your annual expenses. It's more about what are your priorities and why do you need that money for? It's not about numbers. It's about what life would you like to live, and also what life can you live today, even not having billions at the moment.
I would also agree that we are making our final decisions, and even being lucky to go on a flex program to the United States, it's not a guaranteed success. And each of us, each of flex alumni or alumni of any other exchange program, we have to build up on that. We have to turn that experience into a productive work, find own meaning, and create own destiny. Otherwise, it will be just a field trip, which is 10 months long. Do you agree?
Yeah, that's a true statement for sure. And, there is no definite guide to success, and success can be treated differently by different people. But that's like asking enough whys for you to understand what's the purpose, how do you want to develop, why do you want to participate in some of the programs? Because Flex program, for me, it was one of the initial experiences where I made the decision that I want to participate, that I'm ready to go to another side of the globe to try something new. And that expands your horizons, that widens your perspective, and you see different people, different cultures, religions, skin colors. It brought me a high level of tolerance to the differences. And when I came back, I've seen other people through a bit more changed lenses. And whatever experience you're going through, make sure that you learn from it. You have some, lessons learned section after any exchange program, any project, any attempt to apply for a new job. Just rethink what went well, what went wrong. It's not all like, shiny with rosy glasses. You should be realistic, but evaluate, judge yourself, learn step by step, and grow towards the areas that interest you. And be okay with failure, because it's what we see on social media, what we see everywhere. It's the success, but it's only the tip of the iceberg. But everything beneath the water is challenges, failures, hard decisions, some heartbreaks, some challenges, some declines. But if you are persistent enough, then it's going to lead you to some gold and to some shiny diamonds, which are your own destiny, your own future.
So try, and try. Well, Roman, thank you once again for participating in this podcast. Just to remind our listeners, my name is Denis Andrushenko, and I'm host of this show, which is Xme Podcast. We are talking about alumni, participants of exchange programs, and how this experience changed them. And we hope that our show can change you a little bit, give some more perspective, broaden your horizons, and so that we can achieve some common understanding in this world.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy your day.
I invite you to listen and share new episodes and support us on Patreon. This episode is supported by the Public Affairs section of the US Embassy to Ukraine. The views of the authors and guests do not necessarily reflect the official position of the US government.